The issue of a client who really wants to work on showing up on time and ready and prepared to engage with whatever the thing is. The first thing I would say to even preface that is that they're selecting that as a treatment target and linking that to something that's meaningful to them. So, what I mean by that is, it's probably true that this client has gotten tons of negative social feedback for being the late person throughout their development. And certainly it is praiseworthy for a client to want to work on a skill so that they can show up better in relationships. But really just kind of making sure that you're connecting that showing up on time to like a positive value, like because I want to be a better partner in a relationship, because I want to reduce my own stress. So I think one kind of thing that we need to do to enhance implementation on the front end is making sure that the goal is something that the client can connect to something that's deeply meaningful to them. That's a little bit of a preface because that's something then later on you can draw upon. If there is a barrier there, I would say you can do some work around, well, let's think about it's not just about showing up. It's not just about pleasing other people or getting rid of the voice of your third grade teacher who was always in your head. It's like, what do you want to be about in this relationship? And that can be a source to fill in the motivational bank a little bit when we invariably encounter barriers in implementing this issue or this technique. The other thing I would say to do in prep with a client is really normalizing that idea of implementation problems. So just making sure from the get-go, you're going to be like, okay, we're going to try some new stuff. I don't know in advance if this is going to work. I have ideas of things that can work. And we're just going to, that sort of CBT creative empiricism, right? We're going to do an assessment, like figure out like what is the most plausible thing we could try, but we're not going to know until you try it. And it might not work. So in my book, I use this mantra of no one thing always works. And so I think preparing your client as much as possible for implementation failures and framing those as not only normative, but actually necessary to finding the right solution for that client is really, really critical. So I would do a functional assessment or chain analysis. I would try to get a few examples from them to say, let's walk through some examples, like most recently when you've had trouble showing up on time. Let's back up the tape to as far as we need to go before you were supposed to leave. And let's go through kind of where did things break down in that chain. And this is one of the things I struggled with a lot with writing the book, which was like, okay, I want to be CBT-esque, but how do I put this in a self-help book, right? I can't sit there and do the chain analysis. So what I did was I created these tiny chapters that are all around like showing up on time, like if that's your goal, or procrastination, of course, that's a big one. And the beginning of the chapter has these little like checklisty self-assessments for the person to go through and say, like, is this kind of part of the issue for you personally? And then that sort of directs them to the skill that might be most helpful. So some examples, some clients, it's an issue of getting hyper-focused, let's say, on something, some more desirable activity, and then they kind of get in that zone, and before they know it, the time has passed when they're supposed to leave. Something I've noticed, and I've done some research work on this, clients having these kind of avoidant thoughts where it's like, well, last time I made it there in 10 minutes, so I only need 10 minutes, so I can keep doing this until 10 minutes beforehand. Or, okay, I know I need to leave, but I'm just going to do this for 5 more minutes. So you might be assessing for what are thoughts and feelings when it's thinking about shifting from this activity to go to that activity. I hadn't talked about this, but for some clients, it's like they don't have a good calendar system, so they don't even know the appointment exists, right? That's a whole different skill that we would use, right? Some clients have a real anxious thought about like, well, if I get there early and I have to sit and wait, I'll be wasting time, or that's going to be really aversive if I have to sit there. And this may be a person who has never shown up early for anything, but they are having a thought or a feeling, anticipatory anxiety about like what would happen. And so building that awareness of like kind of chaining on where are points in that chain of behaviors where we have the chance to maybe do something different. And so, of course, what is the thing that you do differently is going to look different based on what you've determined there. Could be a couple things. You could do a thing where whenever you're putting an appointment in your calendar system, you're automatically adding a buffer of 30 minutes. This is where I like to use kind of covert rehearsal or visualization. I want you like visualize that moment when you're doing this thing, whatever it is, and you have to switch gear. What does that feel like in your body? Like, where are you feeling that anxiety or almost that like kind of oppositional feeling like I shouldn't have to stop doing this right now? What thoughts are coming up? And then coaching yourself differently. And by coaching, Adults with ADHD, it's got to be supportive and encouraging and realistic, but it's also got to direct you towards a specific strategy. So something to the effect of, I need to leave right now. And this is where you can maybe tap into the value. I need to leave, I need to switch gears right now so that the me of the future can feel peaceful. But coming up with some sort of mantra that can kind of connect the client to, let's be nice to the you of the future, but bring that into the present moment. Having the person practice that skill in the state of mind as much as you can, so that when they encounter those same thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, they might have more of a chance to go another direction.